Everything is Fine by Great 78. Chapter 11. Ambrose. The blue-violet eyes of the elderly man sparkled as he stared into Draco's silver ones. "I'm surprised at you, mate. Salazar's bollocks, Drake, with all of the crazy shit that you and I got up to at Hogwarts. Do you, or do you not remember that night on board the Durmstrang ship at the Black Lake? Or that crazy night that we snuck off to Hogsmeade and got shirt-faced at the Hog's Head when we were supposed to be doing prefect rounds?" Draco's eyes nearly bugged out of his head. "Pansy," he managed to get out. "One and the same?" The grey-bearded man smirked at him. "What? How?" For once, Hermione seemed at a loss for words. Draco felt much the same. The stranger turned his indigo gaze upon Hermione, and raised one critical eyebrow. "Not sure if you're aware, Granger, but whatever sweet little pet you were walking on that lead got eaten by that baby snow leopard. Condolences." The man turned back to Draco, looking between the two of them. "Now, on to the burning questions I'm sure you both have in your minds. I want to discuss them all, but not out here. I'm afraid the windows have eyes." At this, his piercing blue eyes slid sideways to look in the windows of the vintage shop. Draco followed his stare, meeting the barely disguised curiosity of Richard Pryor. Draco spoke up. "Come to my house. We can discuss it there." It was hard for him not to miss Hermione's look of alarm at these words, but Draco knew that this man/pansy was right. If they were to go to a restaurant or shop, or even a park or the beach, plenty of people would be nearby and might overhear them. This was definitely shaping up to be a private conversation. "All right. Where are you living?" the pansy man asked. "Do you know that oversized Tudor on the far side of town?" The man rolled his eyes. "Salazar's gonads. I knew that couldn't possibly be Weasley's place. Why am I not surprised?" "We're in the small gingerbread house behind it," Draco finished, a bit miserably, knowing that the pansy he'd known on Earth would delightfully take the piss out of him for this at every given chance. "Oh, I thought Granger lived there alone." The pansy man gave a tinkling little laugh that was incredibly incongruous with his dark, chiseled features. "Well, that sounds lovely. I'll pop by in 20 minutes or so, all right?" The man turned to go, leaving Draco and Hermione and Jim where they stood. Draco looked all around, at the sky, the trees, the ugly buildings, anywhere but at Hermione. "Draco Malfoy! Why on earth did you do that?" she demanded. "Technically, Granger, we're not on Earth, so—" "You can take your fucking technicalities and shove them, Malfoy," she said angrily. Shit. They were back to surnames. Though, to be fair, he had started it, the brain pixies pointed out. He looked into her eyes pleadingly. "Hermione, hear me out. I know this is a bit unorthodox, but unless this bloke turns out to be a really elaborate hoax, that truly is Pansy, trapped inside that man's body—" "This is ridiculous," she said. Next to her, seated on the ground, Jim licked one paw and rubbed it across his face, staring up at Draco imperiously with one open eye, as if to say he agreed with the pretty woman. "Is it so far-fetched, Hermione? I mean, you're trapped with another person's life history." "Yes, but—" "I know what you're going to say. You and Harlow were close to the same age, the same gender, is that right?" "Yes, but—" "But was it, or was it not you who was always spouting off about equality and seeing everyone as the same, regardless of birth or station? To be honest, I'm a bit surprised by you, Hermione. I thought you were more accepting." Draco tisked, unable to keep the sardonic smile from his face. She was silent for just a minute before she spoke. "You're an absolute prat, and an asshole to boot, Draco Malfoy," Hermione said, crossing her arms petulantly. "Tell me something we don't all know, sweet," Draco said brusquely. "Come on, she's going to be there in a few minutes." Back at the gingerbread house, Hermione slipped the red harness and lead from Jim's back. Immediately, the oversized kitten leapt directly onto the sofa, depositing a large quantity of white fur all over the dark grey sofa's upholstery. Jim, good chap, perhaps we can get you a nice cat bed. Dobby." At the chime indicating the appearance of the elf, Draco asked, "Dobby, can we get our new pet here a lovely throne upon which to repose, top of the line, no less than the best for this sweet darling?" He and Jim eyed each other warily from across the room. "Certainly, Draco." Another chime revealed a large, overstuffed pillow in a thick and sumptuous red velvet. Tassels of gold hung from each corner, and gold thread boldly proclaimed "Jim" across the front. Draco gestured grandly to it, pointing it out to the unimpressed snow leopard. "Jim, allow me to show you to your new throne," he said gallantly. Jim hissed at him and did not move. Draco sighed in resignation. "Right." The doorbell rang. He moved as though to answer it, but Hermione beat him to it. She whipped open the door. "All right. Before we go any further, I'm going to need some definitive proof that you are who you say you are. Tell me something that only Pansy Parkinson would know about me." The man smirked. "Well, I know you have a little birthmark shaped like a rabbit on the underside of one of your breasts. Is that good enough?" Hermione grabbed at her chest. "What the absolute fork? How would you know that?" she whispered in outrage. The pixies in Draco's head went from normal to red alert with all hands on deck in less than 2 seconds. The older man smirked in a way that creeped Draco out, having seen the same expression on Pansy, one of his closest friends, for years. The man crossed the threshold and closed the door behind himself, stepping further into the room. "Wizards talk when they're drunk. I assume you recall the little dalliance you had with a certain Cormac McLaggen a few months before your death." Draco fixed the horrified Hermione with a pitying stare. "Oh, Granger, you didn't." She shot him an angry, defensive look. "It was a bit of a dry spell, and he matured a lot after the war." "Oh, he was mature in all the right places. You got that right," the older man said with a salacious grin, licking his lips appreciatively. He moved to Draco's recliner, settling his large backside into the seat and running his hands along the arms of the chair. "This is nice. Very comfy. But back to the topic at hand. Salazar, that man's clock. Sorry, I'm going to need to ask you to refrain from... you look old enough to be McLaggen's grandfather," Draco said in a choked voice, as nicely as he could. "Fuck off, Dre," the man said lazily. "Anyway, Granger, I slept with him a few years after you, and he was far too talkative when we were done. To be honest, I was trying to formulate ways of kicking him out nicely, but he got very maudlin and wanted to discuss you." "Godric, help me," Hermione moaned, covering her face and going to sit on the sofa next to Jim the snow leopard. Draco edged towards the two of them, but heard a low growl that seemed to emanate deep from within the large cat's throat. He eyed the cat bed doubtfully, and elected to remain standing. "Wait!" Hermione lifted her face from her hands. "You said it was a few years later. When did you die?" The gentleman rolled his eyes. 2015. In childbirth, if you can believe it." There was a shocked silence in the room. Then Draco broke it. "Pans, I'm sorry. I know you always wanted—" "It's fine, Draco. The baby lived," the man said, clearly trying to look anywhere but at them. After a few uncomfortable moments of silence, Draco tried a new topic. "So, you outlived us. Can you tell us about our deaths? We know that we died at practically the same time, and that 2 other people died as well, but that's the only real information we have." The older man's forehead furrowed as though he was in deep thought of times past. "I must say, I can't recall anything for certain. That's odd. I do remember. It was highly publicized. I seem to recall there were dark factions at work, but I don't know now if it was Voldemort's people or someone else." Draco and Hermione looked at each other sharply, but the man continued to speak. He shook his head, still pondering the question. "I just don't know. It almost feels like a dream that you try to remember after you wake up. It's just out of reach, but when I turn to look at it, the whole thing just vanishes like vapor. If you had asked me before I saw you here in the good place, I would have known that you both died, but that's all. I don't remember any of the details." The man looked rather distraught at this turn of events. "It's all right, Pans," Draco said. "Exactly how long have you been here?" "I've been here, a few weeks, maybe a month, I think. Time gets all confuzzled here. Do you know what I mean?" Hermione nodded in understanding. "It's much the same for me. I've been here for what feels like about 2 weeks, and Draco has only been here for a few days now. I think Ron has been here as long as you have." "Oh, yes. I saw Weasley across the room at that reception. I didn't speak to him. We weren't close on Earth, and it's not like he would recognize Ambrose here," the man said, gesturing to his own elderly male face. "Besides, I was a bit embarrassed for him. That house was absolutely ghastly. Everywhere I turned, I felt like the tackiness was trying to physically maul me. Do you know what I mean?" Draco nodded morosely, along with Ambrose, but Hermione only narrowed her eyes. "So, how do you think this happened, Pansy?" Draco asked, in order to move past that bit of unpleasantness. "You're here as a different person. Hermione is being called by a different person's name. There's someone named Luna Lovegood here, but it's not the Luna we knew." "Oh, good. I'm glad you confirmed that bit for me," Ambrose/Pansy said in relief. "I thought either my memory was incredibly shoddy, or Lovegood had had the makeover to end all makeovers." "But no idea what has happened. Do you know your soulmate? Tell me it's not Ernie Macmillan or somebody." Draco smirked. "No, it's a lovely older lady from Colombia. She mostly speaks Spanish, so we communicate with hand gestures," Ambrose offered. "Well, that sounds, pleasant?" Hermione tried. "Yes, the sex is good, but I must say, Luciana has gotten a lot more clingy in the past few days. I had to sneak away to find you, and to give you that note." "Yeah, what was that about, Pans? You scared the living shirt out of me and Hermione," Draco grumbled. Ambrose only raised one grey eyebrow at Draco's use of Hermione's given name. "Sorry. I thought about writing more, but I didn't want to incriminate myself, in case you were not yourselves. I mean, I'm fairly sure that based on the decor of that Jim-awful estate, that Weasley is Weasley, but the last time I checked on Earth, I didn't have a prostate and bollocks, you know." Leave it to Pansy to figure out a way around the filters on crass language, here in the good place, in order to shock people, Draco thought wryly. "So, what ideas do you have?" the Pansy man asked, turning to Hermione. "Ideas about what?" asked Hermione, coming back to herself as though she'd been lost in thought. "What do you think, Granger?" "Not about the price of tea in China, that's for certain," the former Slytherin said sarcastically. ideas about this. Why are all these things wrong? Why are you called hollow, and why, for the love of all that is good in the world, do I have testicles that hang down nearly to my knees?" I don't know," Hermione said, and Draco could hear the tinge of panic rising in her voice. "Things just aren't adding up." Ambrose/Pansy huffed in exasperation, then stood. "I hate to run, but Luciana wants to meet for bowling in a few minutes. Have you been in touch with Weasley at all?" This question was mainly directed at Hermione, but they both nodded. "We've spoken." Draco grimaced. "It didn't go well at first, but he was more palatable the second time." The older man laughed. "Thank Merlin. That was not my experience my first time with the Weasley. I thought Charlie was the best one. I mean, he was certainly the biggest. But then I spent a bit of time with Percy and got to know him. There's the one that will surprise you." Mercifully, this comment was directed entirely at Hermione. Holy fucking Salazar, the things that man could do when he had a woman bent over a desk. Hermione, if possible, looked even more flushed. "Pansy, what are your plans for tomorrow? Maybe the three of us can sit down with Weasley sometime and try to figure all this out," Draco interrupted, pushing images of the bespectacled, poncy, but apparently quite dominant, Percy Weasley from his mind. Thankfully, every last Cornish pixie had already expired at the mention of Ambrose's descended bullocks. "I'm in the high-rise, the building across the street from Café Monkey Otto. Perhaps we can meet there for coffee. The banana taste isn't so strong. Let's make it early, though. When the monkeys are let out at noon, you can barely hear yourself think in there." "Right, tell you what, just come here," Draco said, opening the door to allow Ambrose to leave. As he did so, something wet and cold struck the side of his face. He brushed it away, then looked down at it, where it lay on the ground. Was that a piece of raw steak? He looked up in confusion, only to find that the sky had grown dark in the short time that they'd sat down with Pansy. But rather than rain falling from the clouds, it was all manner of meats. Sausage links, skirt steak, jumbo prawns, both scampi and fried, and succulent prime rib. He looked back at the two others in complete confusion. "What the absolute fork is this?" Ambrose/Pansy asked. As they watched, a herd of large cats in a huge pack ran down the street swiftly. Glints of round gold necklaces bounced off of their powerfully muscled chests. "Are they wearing time-turners?" Hermione asked faintly, in disbelief. "That's odd," Draco mused. "Why time-turners?" A loud rumble in the distance, however, drove all wondering from his mind. There was a thunderous clamour that sounded like 1,000 elephants trundling across the dance floor at full tilt. In the haze of meat-dappled sunshine, it was almost hard to make out what exactly was causing the cacophony. It turned out to be a herd of massive books, each taller and broader than the woolly mammoth at the Bananas foster home. They scuttled along on their edges, pages flapping, in order to propel them like the legs of a centipede. The book covers of rich yellow gold, royal blue, bold red, and luxuriant green were each embossed with a large emblem, all with a prominent letter H in the center. "Oh, fork!" Hermione moaned behind him. "This is because of me." "How so, Granger?" Ambrose asked curiously. "The big cats and the books I get, of course. But meat. And what about time-turners? Indicates that this is about you." "The person I'm supposed to be, Harlow, she's a vegetarian, but I love meat. I was sneaking some during Ron's reception. As for the time-turners," she explained reluctantly, "I used one in 3rd year to take extra classes." Merlin's asshole. Only this witch would use a time-turner for academics. Draco, I have no idea how you were ever so enamored with her." Ambrose said in amusement to him. "I was never—" Draco began hotly, studiously avoiding Hermione's wide eyes. "Salazar on a spike, Draco. Get a grip. You had an obvious, slobbering, crushing fascination with her for years. Everyone knew it. Umberto." A young, dark-haired man with smouldering eyes appeared with a chime. "Yes, Ambrose." "Conjure me a sturdy umbrella, please. I don't want to get meat juices in my hair." With a second chime, a large umbrella appeared in Ambrose's hands, and the handsome young man disappeared. "Listen, you two. Things are getting more urgent and more strange by the day. Something similar to this happened the first week or so that I was here, except it rained jewelry. All of it looked like things from the Parkinson vault, and there were larger-than-life pansy flowers parading through the streets. It was creepy." Privately, Draco thought that the meat shower sounded much worse than jewelry falling from the sky, but he kept that thought to himself. Hermione, who looked the most flustered that she had since he'd arrived, now spoke up. "Let's meet tomorrow. We'll have Ron over. Can you come round about 2 o'clock? Ambrose looked doubtfully at the accumulating meat on the pavement. "Yes, that's fine. Luciana will be doing Tai Chi lessons down at the lake. I'm not as limber as she is. I'm not sure if it's Ambrose's arthritis or if he's just not built that way, but it's definitely not my favorite activity. I'll see the 3 of you at 2 o'clock. They closed the door on the meat storm and stood in the entryway of the house awkwardly, each of them avoiding the other's eyes. Finally, Draco cleared his throat. "So, how about those large cats? Wearing floody time-turners, no less." He tried for nonchalance and fell miserably short. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Hermione asked quietly. "Tell you what?" Draco deflected. She looked up then, her copper eyes burning into his soul. "Draco!" "Because it wouldn't have made a difference, Granger," he forced out. "We were 2 different people from 2 different backgrounds on opposite sides of a war. There were expectations of me. I had hurt you and the people you cared about too much and too often. And you were so far out of reach. The very idea that you might have been at all interested in me was laughable." "You're such a brat." "I know, and that's why I've never said anything." She asked, "Who cares that we came from different backgrounds? I mean, besides the obvious people, of course. And you were so intelligent and courageous, so the idea of you with a coward like me was," he went on. "But it wasn't completely impossible." They finished together. Draco felt out of breath, and Hermione stared at him, her cheeks flushed pink. They stood there in the entryway of the little gingerbread cottage, neither knowing where to go from here. "Draco," she started again, gently, looking rather flustered. He jumped in to speak before she could let him down gently. "No, Hermione. You don't need to offer me some kind of false hope, like I'm another one of your Reformation projects. Believe me, I know who I was back then. I sealed my own fate the very first time I called you a spudflood." "But you didn't," she said. "Seal your fate, I mean." He carded his fingers through his blonde hair, and then inhaled and exhaled heavily. "Explain what you mean," he said quietly. "It's just that I started noticing in 5th year that you seem to be changing, growing, if you will. I don't know if it was Umbridge being at the school, or Bellatrix escaping Azkaban, or something else entirely, but I noticed in the second half of that year something seemed different. After that, Your words seemed almost performative, like you were trying to prove that you were part of it. But you didn't seem as committed, if that makes sense." Draco wanted to run away from her. He felt exposed. All these years, he thought he'd hid his fears and worries of the second half of that year, and the next, so well. Now, here was this witch telling him that she'd known something was wrong, that something about him had been obviously different all along. That Christmas, he, like many of the students, tired of the Umbridge regime, had elected to go home for the holidays. Lucius had been a nervous, erratic wreck. The entire time that Draco had been home, Lucius had spoken of nearly nothing except the need for unswerving servitude and absolute supplication to the Dark Lord. Draco had always thought of his father as authoritative, powerful, and strong. Now he looked weak, almost frail. His fingertips shook as he fought to maintain a grip on a fork or a glass. Lucius's sunken eyes stared hauntingly into the distance when he didn't realize anyone was watching. His mother had explained that Lucius was experiencing the after-effects of the Cruciatus curse. Draco pondered what his father could have done so wrong to earn such an extreme punishment. Then one night, a couple of days after Boxing Day, his father entered Draco's suite, hurried and panicked. "He has summoned me. He wishes for you to come as well." Lucius's words tumbled out. "Father, I don't want to go." Draco had resisted at first. If possible, his father looked even more frantic. "Draco, if you don't go, he's threatened to kill me and Crucio, you both, you and your mother. He requires unfaltering loyalty. I fear he may... well, that is to say, I fear a great many things might happen if we don't." And so, Draco had capitulated. They went, and after Lucius had been crucioed, Voldemort had turned the torture curse on Draco. Not very long, or even very forcefully. Just enough to show Draco that he was in control, and that he meant what he said. A taster, he called it. Still, those 30 or so seconds of pain had been enough to cause him to bite almost all of the way through his tongue, and to nearly lose control of his bodily functions. Every nerve ending, every vein seemed to spark and ignite with pain. When it was over, Draco would have agreed to anything if he could have never had to experience it, ever again. So, yes, to say that his heart wasn't committed to the cause would have been an understatement. He only thought that he'd hid it better back then. I wasn't committed to it, I mean. I learned during the holiday break that it wasn't all that I thought it was. The whole movement lost its luster rather quickly. She seemed hesitant to say anything, but her Gryffindor bravery compelled her. "Do you want to talk?" "I don't wish to speak of it," he said simply. She stared at him a moment longer, but then only nodded. "All right. I understand." They stood in the foyer in silence for a bit, until he couldn't stand the empty silence between them. "I know I apologized to you, years ago, for my actions in the war, and my inactions. But I never fully apologized for the way I treated you." "Draco," she began again, moving to stand closer to him. "Please, let me just say it. You need to know it. I was such a little shirt towards Potter and Weasley, not because of who they were, but because of who they were to you. They had what I wanted, and I couldn't handle it. I started at Hogwarts thinking that I was the best of the best, that I'd follow my father's path and rule my little corner of the wizarding world one day. And you came in with your intellect and thirst for knowledge and your opinions, and I could just tell you were the one who would set the world on fire one day. And to make it all worse, I wanted you to do it, and I wanted to stand next to you and watch it burn." A little smile escaped her, and she took another step towards him. If he raised his arms, his fingertips might have brushed her, but he dared not. "Hermione, I'm so sorry for the times I made you feel less than." He looked up at her then. "In my eyes, you were always so much more than everything else around you, even though my words didn't express that." "You saved my life once, you know," she said softly, taking another small step. He could smell the lovely lavender scent of the soap in their shower now. "No, I didn't. I just stood there frozen in panic and fear whilst you were tortured." "I don't mean then," she interrupted. "I mean before fourth year." He huffed out a harsh laugh of disbelief. "Hermione, I doubt anything I did." "But you did. After the Quidditch World Cup, when that crowd was rounding up Muggleborns, I was with Harry and Ron, and we were panicked. We got separated from Ginny and the twins, trying to figure out where to go. I was about to suggest that we go back into the tent area to find help, but you stopped us and told me to keep my head down and go hide, away from that mob. Harry and Ron thought you were being your usual ash-hole self, but I could see how scared you were. I knew if you were frightened, I should be scared too. We went into the forest instead, and we stayed safe." He took a deep breath, remembering that frightening night so long ago. "That was a scary night," he agreed. "Without you to refocus us, to urge us to get away from there, I'm not sure what would have happened." With those words, she reached up and laid her hand carefully on his chest. He wondered if she could feel his heart beating fiercely. Then he wondered if he still had a heartbeat. He reached up and placed his hand on top of hers. Her other hand came up to his neck, her fingers feather soft and light against his skin. Slowly he reached tentatively for her waist. She stepped forward again, and before he could hardly realize what was happening, their lips met. They kissed gently, uncertain at first, and then with fervor, a passion that seemed to set ablaze every nerve ending in his body. The pixies in his brain were exploding in ecstasy. There was a knock at the front door. Their lips parted, and a barely whispered "Fork" fell from his. She smiled up at him, her warm copper eyes half-lidded. "That better be important," she joked. They stepped apart and straightened their clothes. "Jim, stay," Hermione breathlessly instructed the cat, who continued to sleep in a ball on the sofa. Draco opened the door. Ariel was on the doorstep. "Oh, think here. There's a massive problem happening, and I need help from the two of you." "What? Ariel, what's wrong?" Draco asked cautiously. The ordinarily stately and serene woman looked flustered for the first time that Draco recalled. "I've just managed to round up the last of those cats and get rid of all that meat. I'm not sure what we'll do with the books. Perhaps a labyrinth or something. That could be fun. Oh, but what am I saying?" Ariel wrung her hands nervously, shaking her head as she paced a bit. "I'm not sure, but I fear I've made some kind of mistake. I fear there's someone in the good place who isn't supposed to be here. And I think you can tell me who it is." Thank you for listening to Everything is Fine by Great78. If you enjoyed this story and would like to read more like it, please find me on Archive of Our Own, or follow my Spotify channel, Silver and Copper.